The stars were quiet that night in the outer rim of the galaxy, where Captain Elias Grant docked his old cargo ship, the Horizon's Edge. Elias had once been a soldier, fighting battles across different worlds, but those days were behind him. Now he lived as a trader, moving goods from one colony to another. His ship was old, his crew was small, and his life was simple. Yet he liked it that way, peaceful, predictable, and far away from the politics of powerful empires. That evening, Elias was finishing a trade with a group of alien miners on a dusty frontier station. They were strange creatures with wide eyes and scales on their arms, but Elias had dealt with them before. He had carried tools and food for them, and in return they were supposed to pay him in credits. But as he waited at the docking bay, the leader of the miners shifted uneasily, rubbing his scaled hands together. "We do not have the full credits," the alien said in a broken but clear voice. "Work was poor this season. We have something else." Elias frowned. "Something else? That wasn't the deal. You promised credits. I can't keep flying my ship on promises." The alien leader looked to his companions. They whispered in their own language, then motioned to the back of their group. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It was a girl, young, with long silver hair tangled and dirty, her clothes little more than rags. Her wrists carried faint marks as though she had been bound before. She kept her head low, her shoulders trembling. "This one," the miner said, almost ashamed. "She was taken in trade. Worthless to us. We give her as payment." Elias froze. A slave? That was something he had seen before in the darker corners of the galaxy. Some species still practiced it, despite the laws against it. He clenched his jaw. "I don't buy people," the alien hissed softly. "If you refuse, she dies here. We cannot care for her. This way you lose nothing." The girl lifted her face slightly. Her eyes were a striking shade of violet, filled with fear but also a quiet dignity. Elias could see it. Beneath the dirt and fear, she was not broken. She stood straight even if her body trembled. Something about her presence made him hesitate. Elias sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. He hated himself for even considering it. But he also knew what would happen if he left her behind. These miners would abandon her to the wasteland, and he could not live with that thought. "Fine," Elias said firmly. "But hear me well, I do not own her. From this moment, she is free. Do you understand?" The aliens hissed again, confused, but nodded. They shoved the girl forward and she stumbled into Elias's arms. He steadied her, then guided her toward his ship without another word. Inside the Horizon's Edge, Elias showed the girl to a small cabin. It was plain, just a bed, a chair, and a small window to the stars. To her it must have looked like a palace compared to where she had been. "You can rest here," Elias said gently, "and eat. You're safe now." The girl looked at him with wide eyes. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but heavy with fear. "Master, what will you have me do?" Elias stopped in his tracks. "Master, no, you misunderstand. I'm not your master. You're free here. My name is Elias. What's yours?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra. Lyra," he repeated. "Good, remember this. You don't serve me. You don't serve anyone. Not here." But Lyra only lowered her head as if the word freedom was something she could not believe. Over the next few days, Elias watched her carefully. She was quiet and polite, moving carefully through the ship as if afraid to touch anything, yet she surprised him in small ways. She spoke many languages fluently, sometimes correcting the ship's translation system. She seemed to understand advanced navigation charts better than some professional officers he had known. Once, when he dropped a datapad showing the crest of a neighboring system, she froze, staring at it as if it burned her eyes. "You know this symbol?" Elias asked. Lyra quickly shook her head. "No, master." Then she corrected herself nervously. "No, Elias." Her fear puzzled him. She acted like someone who had lived a very different life before her capture. He saw her tracing faint patterns on her wrists sometimes, markings that looked less like scars and more like symbols. Late one night, when most of the ship was asleep, Elias found her in the control room, staring at the stars. "You don't sleep much," he said softly. She flinched, then shook her head. "I am not used to comfort." "Not used to safety." Her voice cracked slightly. Then she looked at him, her violet eyes glowing faintly under the light of the control panels. "Why did you take me? You could have refused. You could have left me." Elias leaned against the doorframe. Because I've seen enough of people being thrown away. I won't add to it. You deserved better. For the first time, her lips curved in a faint, fragile smile. But something still gnawed at Elias. He had traveled the galaxy long enough to sense when things did not add up. This girl, this so-called slave, was not ordinary. Her voice carried authority even when she whispered. Her knowledge was too refined. Her very presence seemed to unsettle aliens who met her. And the way she avoided questions about her past told Elias there was more to her story than she let on. As the horizon's edge jumped to its next port, Elias caught one last glimpse of the symbols on her wrist, glowing faintly in the starlight. Symbols he had seen once before during the war, symbols tied to a dynasty so powerful that entire fleets bowed to them. Elias's eyes narrowed. Who exactly was Lyra? The answer he knew would change his life forever. The cargo ship Horizon's Edge floated through the dark sea of stars, engines humming quietly as it moved from one trading route to another. For Captain Elias Grant, life on the Outer Rim had always been about survival, moving goods, staying out of trouble, and keeping his ship in one piece. But ever since he had taken the strange girl Lyra aboard, nothing felt the same. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. On the surface, she looked fragile, quiet, even frightened. She avoided drawing attention, spoke softly, and bowed her head often as if trained to be invisible. Yet behind those violet eyes, Elias sensed a storm of secrets. At first, she spent most of her time in the small cabin he had given her. But slowly she began to wander the ship. He found her in the engine room once, studying the fusion coils with surprising understanding. Another time, she corrected the ship's autopilot when it was plotting a slightly risky course through a cluster of microasteroids. You've seen charts like this before? Elias asked her, curious. She flinched as though caught doing something wrong, then whispered, I studied them once. Studied them? Elias thought. She had spoken with the tone of someone who had been trained, not just casually exposed. It was not only Elias who noticed. His small crew, a mechanic named Joran and a medic named Mara, began whispering among themselves. She doesn't act like a slave, Mara muttered one evening in the mess hall. Her posture, her manners. She sits like someone raised in a palace, not a cage. Joran nodded. I've seen officers from the core worlds. She carries herself the same way. Elias stayed quiet, but he agreed. Lyra was no ordinary runaway. One day, as the ship docked at a busy trading hub, Elias took Lyra with him to gather supplies. She stayed close to him, her head lowered. But something unexpected happened. As they walked through the crowded marketplace, a group of alien merchants froze when they saw her. One of them, a tall insectoid trader, bowed slightly before quickly looking away. Another whispered in a language Elias barely caught. She lives. Elias's instincts sharpened. These weren't random reactions. Something about Lyra was known, recognized. Back aboard the ship, he confronted her gently. People bowed to you out there. Why? Who are you really, Lyra? Her hands shook as she clutched the edge of the table. Please, do not ask. I need to ask, Elias said firmly. Because whatever you're hiding, it's attracting attention. And attention can get us all killed. Her eyes filled with fear. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then in a trembling voice, she whispered, I am not who you think I am. I was not born a slave. Elias leaned forward, waiting. My name is Lyra Zelthari, she admitted at last. Was the only daughter of the High Empress of the Zelthari Empire. The words hung in the air like thunder. Elias stared at her, stunned. He had heard of the Zelthari, one of the wealthiest and most powerful empires in the galaxy, ruling dozens of star systems. Their empress was feared and respected everywhere. And Lyra was her daughter? That's impossible, Elias said slowly. If you were a princess, why would you be here in rags sold off by miners? Lyra's voice shook, but her tone carried deep sorrow. Because someone wanted me erased. Years ago, assassins attacked my mother's palace. They failed, but in the chaos, traitors inside the court took me away. I was hidden, passed from hand to hand until I was nothing but a rumor. They said I had died. Perhaps that is what my mother still believes. Elias felt the weight of her words. A princess stolen from her empire, reduced to a life of chains. The symbols on her wrist, the refined way she spoke, her knowledge of languages and star maps, it all made sense now. But it also meant something dangerous. If her enemies discovered she was alive, They would not stop until she was silenced forever. The danger came sooner than Elias expected. Not long after her confession, his ship picked up strange signals on the scanners. A vessel was following them. At first he thought it might be coincidence, but by the second day a second ship appeared. Then a third. All were keeping their distance but matching his course. "They're hunting us," Joran muttered in the control room. Elias nodded grimly. He knew the look of a predator pack circling prey. Someone had spread the word. And the target was not his cargo, it was Lyra. That night Lyra came to him, her face pale. "It is my fault." "You are in danger because of me." Elias shook his head. "It's not your fault. You didn't choose this. But if those ships are here, it means your enemies know you're alive, and that means they'll stop at nothing." Tears welled in her violet eyes. "Then leave me. Set me on a station. Save yourself." Elias looked at her firmly. "I don't abandon people. Not my crew, not you. You're under my protection now. If they want you, they'll have to go through me." For a moment she stared at him, stunned. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Slowly she whispered, "You are different from others. Humans are different." But the danger grew sharper with every passing day. More ships gathered in the shadows of the stars, their signals appearing on the scanners like wolves waiting to strike. Elias's ship was fast, but not strong enough to fight a fleet. He began working with Lyra, planning escape routes, studying imperial codes she remembered. Her memory was sharp. She recalled hidden passages through asteroid belts, forgotten communication relays, and access signals only the royal family would know. The more they worked together, the more Elias saw her not as a frightened girl, but as a leader in her own right. And Lyra, in turn, began to trust him. For the first time in years, she laughed softly at his dry jokes or shared quiet stories of her childhood beneath the crystal domes of the imperial gardens. Yet, danger was always close. One evening, as they entered the outer rim of a dense asteroid field, an alarm blared through the ship. Mara ran into the control room, her face pale. "Ships are moving in. They've surrounded us." Elias gripped the controls tightly, his eyes narrowing at the sight of enemy signals closing in from all directions. "They're not letting us go this time," Joran muttered. Elias turned to Lyra. "Looks like your enemies have finally caught up." Lyra's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "Then we fight. Together." Her words carried not fear, but determination, the voice of someone who remembered she was not just a runaway, but a princess born to lead. The scanners flashed red. The enemy fleet closed in. The storm was here, and Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The control room of Horizon's Edge was filled with tension as red lights blinked across the scanner. Enemy ships closed in from every direction, their signals sharp and hostile. Elias tightened his grip on the controls, his eyes locked on the approaching fleet. His old cargo ship was not built for war, and against so many hunters survival seemed almost impossible. Yet he felt a fire rising in him. He had faced death before as a soldier, and fear no longer ruled him. But this time was different. This time he wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for Lyra. Beside him the princess sat straight, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She was no longer the trembling girl he had first seen in rags. Something inside her had awakened. Her voice was calm but strong. "They will not stop," she said, "but they do not expect us to outthink them." Elias gave a small grin. "Then let's give them a surprise." The enemy hailed the ship. A cold metallic voice came through the comms. "Turn over the girl. Do this and you may live. Resist and you will be destroyed." Elias leaned toward the comms and spoke firmly. "You'll have to tear the ship apart to get her." The silence that followed carried pure threat. Then the hunters moved in. Elias's hands moved quickly over the controls, guiding Horizon's Edge through the asteroid field ahead. Giant rocks spun slowly in the dark, glowing faintly from the light of nearby stars. To most the field was a death trap. To Elias it was cover. "Strap in," he shouted. The ship jolted left, then right, weaving through narrow passages as enemy ships chased behind. Explosions lit up the rocks as laser fire missed them by inches. Lyra, gripping the seat, closed her eyes briefly. Then she spoke. "There is a hidden passage here. My people built it long ago as an escape route for the fleet. The access codes are burned into my memory." Elias looked at her. "Then now's the time to use them." She quickly tapped the codes into the console. A hidden beacon lit up deep within the asteroid field. As they approached, a section of rocks shifted apart, revealing a secret tunnel large enough for their ship. Hang on. Elias pushed the engines darting into the tunnel. Behind them, the hunters tried to follow, but without the codes, the passage sealed shut, crushing two ships against the rock walls. The survivors fell back. For now, Elias and Lyra were safe. Hours later, as the ship drifted in quieter space, Elias looked at Lyra. She seemed calmer, though her eyes carried the weight of the galaxy. "You saved us," he said. She shook her head. "You saved me first. If not for you, I would still be in chains. I owe you more than my life." Elias studied her carefully. "You don't owe me anything, Lyra, but we can't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they'll catch up again." Her voice grew firm. "Then I must stop hiding. I must return to my people. My mother believes me dead. My enemies think me erased. But if I stand before the Empire again, the truth will burn away their lies." Elias raised a brow. "If we go to your mother, we'll be flying straight into the jaws of power." "You're sure?" Her chin lifted, her voice filled with royal strength. "I am sure. I am the rightful heir, and I will not run any longer." The journey to the Zeltari capital took days. Elias kept the ship cloaked in quiet routes, avoiding patrols while Lyra prepared herself. She no longer wore rags. Mara had found clean clothes for her, simple but dignified. She walked with grace, and when she spoke, there was command in her tone. She was no longer the hidden slave. She was a princess returning home. When they reached the edge of the capital system, Elias's heart pounded. The scanners showed a sight that humbled even him. Dozens of massive starships guarding the Empire's core world, their metal bodies shining like blades under the sun. This was the strength of the Zeltari Empire. "What's the plan?" Joran muttered nervously. Elias's voice was steady. "We go straight in. If we try to sneak, we'll be destroyed. But if we fly bold with the truth, we might have a chance." Lyra placed her hand on his arm. "Transmit this code," she said, giving him a string of symbols only royal blood could know. Elias sent the code across the channels. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the largest ship, the Imperial flagship, turned its guns away and opened a direct channel. A voice thundered, deep and commanding. "Who dare send this code? Speak!" Lyra stepped forward, her voice carrying like a blade. "I am Princess Lyra Zeltari, daughter of the High Empress. I live, and I return." The silence that followed was heavy, as if the galaxy itself held its breath. Then the comms filled with shocked voices. Officers, commanders, even common crew, all whispering her name. Elias saw the impossible happening. Ships that had aimed their guns now lowered them. The Imperial fleet shifted, surrounding Horizon's Edge not as hunters but as an escort. The flagship sent coordinates. "You are ordered to dock at the Royal Station immediately." Elias glanced at Lyra. She nodded. This is the moment. When they docked, the halls of the Royal Station were filled with soldiers, nobles, and officials. At the center stood the High Empress herself, tall and regal, her silver crown shining. Her eyes, deep violet like her daughter's, were sharp but filled with sorrow. As Lyra stepped forward, whispers erupted. Some wept. Others gasped in disbelief. The Empress's voice broke through the noise. "My child?" Lyra fell to her knees, tears flowing. "Mother, it is me. I am alive." The Empress ran forward, breaking her royal composure, and embraced her daughter. The crowd erupted in shock, then applause, then chants of joy. The lost princess had returned. In the days that followed, the Empire shook with change. Traitors who had hidden the princess's fate were exposed. Enemies who had hunted her were revealed and punished. And through it all, Elias was honored as the human who had protected and returned the heir to the throne. The Empress offered him gold, ships, even a title among her people. But Elias refused politely. "All I want," he said, "is safe passage and fair trade for my people. We don't need crowns or riches. Just respect." The Empress studied him, then smiled. "Then respect you shall have. Humanity has proven itself worthy." On the day Elias prepared to leave, Lyra met him privately. She wore her royal robes now, her hair brushed and crowned, yet her eyes were soft, filled with gratitude. "You gave me more than freedom," she said. "You gave me hope again. I will not forget you, Elias Grant." Elias nodded. "You don't owe me thanks, Princess. Just make the galaxy a little better than you found it." She smiled, tears shining. "That is a promise." As Horizon's Edge lifted off, Elias looked back one last time at the Grand Capital. He had come for trade, and instead he had carried a princess back to her throne. And he knew, deep inside, that humanity's strength was not in wealth or fleets, but in simple acts of courage and kindness that changed the course of empires.